السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. So now the black people in the audience, now you know your origin? Amazing, huh? This is on? But, so 7 minutes, and with that 7 minutes, the next, and that's why the Mormons, when they come to you, it's so easy to start with that. They come to you. Have you heard of the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints? Yeah, absolutely. Aren't you the one that believe that that God used to be a human and lived on earth and will become gods? And they immediately look down. And then the high point and low point. You come with the low point, you come with the high point. So the minute someone that tells they're ashamed of it, you start to invite them to Islam. So instead of them giving you that, well, you use that. So when they're in that state of shame, you're the one now giving the talk. You're the one giving the da'wah. Don't be the one who is the mad'u. Someone with this belief system is giving you that. But let's see here. Wrote something else here. Someone asked me a question. I said I would mention it to him. Okay, someone asked also. Yeah, that was one question. And there was another question. Yeah, great. The question was about effeminate men. Effeminate men. They're not gay or anything. They're just effeminate. They have loose joints. The wrist folds freely. Sometimes some of them use women's cologne and things like that, but they're not gay or anything like that. In Sudan, for example, a lot of cooks are effeminate. And most of the time, the cook is just talks like a woman, uses a woman's perfume, but is not gay. Doesn't feel affection for men or anything like that. They're just effeminate men, and they used to exist also at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Just a guy is just a softy, very soft, and likes the company of women and so on and so forth. They don't necessarily fall into the category of gays, and thus they start doing that kind of activity and become gay. But also there's also like and it's not gay. That's why when they try to argue, there's something called Klinefelter syndrome, which is basically, as you know, the male has 2 X chromosomes. The female has 2 X chromosomes, and the male has an X and a Y. So this is a genetic disorder where they have 2 X's and a Y. So XXY. So they've got XX, which is to make them female, but they've got an XY. This is the kind of person that you see who genetically was born like this, and you might see a man/woman, or someone with Klinefelters. They will have, let's say, male hands, like hairy hands, big fingers, and then they'll have like mammary glands, let's say, and then they'll have something male and something female, and you might be confused. And they're not someone who went through an operation and tried to change or anything like that. They were just born like that. So if you ever find someone trying to use that as an argument to say, look, it's genetic, they're not gay, these people. They just have both genes, and their personality will be one or the other. I interviewed one person who had Klinefelters, and he was a male, and he was married, and he was taking other hormones to just keep the feminine physical part suppressed. But he was actually a male, and he had and sometimes it's the opposite. It's a woman, but then she's got the man hands or the hair and stuff, or something like that. It has nothing to do with gays, so they're not gay. Yeah, Shiraz?
I forgot which one it is, either transvestite or transsexual. The one who is naturally they have their genitals are, it's like a mix of male and female. What about them?
What about them as far as their ruling, or did they classify as gay?
They're ruling.
The ruling in the hereafter, or the ruling is like as far as going to men's rooms or the women's restrooms? Yeah,
like what would they be considered here, and can they marry and things like that?
Well, you know what? I've never looked that up actually. I've not encountered anything like that. So has anyone looked that up in like Islam QA or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's also about the concept. Right? people, like some of them, like they're actually like sexually not active, right? So it was like halal for them to like walk onto women, who don't wear hijab, and the ruling is that
The effeminate men. The effeminate men. Yeah.
yeah, and
okay.
and it's actually
He's
halal.
talking about trans.
Yeah, the transvestite, and like they have the option to choose like which sex they actually want to be, and they can take like which hormones they want. They can have surgery if they want, and that's all like halal.
Okay. I'm still confused. Not that you didn't explain one, but look, let's just do this. Let's move on. And the people, because I'm not sure where we're talking. Like there might be an effeminate man, and he's just a male who's effeminate. He doesn't have the right to change, and to go through operation to try to become a woman. And if that does happen, is he allowed to enter the women's restroom? He would be probably allowed, because he's an effeminate man, to enter upon women more so in a way than the male would be allowed. Because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a man who was effeminate, and he used to sit and talk with the women. The Prophet ﷺ allowed him because he was effeminate. But then, when the Prophet ﷺ realized that the man pays attention to female physique, the Prophet ﷺ said he will not enter upon women again. So he made a description, so he's actually one of those who looks at the woman physique, even though he was effeminate. So the Prophet forbade him to sit with the woman after that. Then because now the world is so mixed up. We've got some really, really extreme cases. A friend of mine was telling me about his boss, who used to be a male. It doesn't get worse than this. He was a male, went through operations and hormones and surgery and became a female, and then became a lesbian. And he went back to liking women. Could have stayed a man and liked women. It doesn't get worse than that. So, obviously, that's beyond me, those kinds of things. I don't know how to answer that. I would look it up Islam QA or I'd harass Sheikh Walid Basuni or something like that. Okay, Salah. So we said that Allah does not need us to worship Him, but Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So someone might ask you, well, why did He even command us to worship Him? So can you explain that? Why should we worship Allah then? Sure, He commanded us, I understand that. But why did He even command us to do that? Yes, sir.
Because He created us.
So can He just create us and we don't have to pray?
To be thankful for what He has given us.
Can I be thankful without praying? I'm not saying it's a valid argument. Yeah?
Because we need it.
Because we need it.
We need
It's
to
true. I mean, that was true, Umar, and that was true as well.
Ahmad, to see which of His creations are obedient to Him and which ones are not.
Okay, so you can link it to obedience and disobedience. Yes, sir?
What do you do like when there are bad times? You go back to worship God, right?
Okay.
So what the assessing of what the person when there's good.
All right. So in the bad times, it's something you fall back on, worshiping Allah. Please raise your voice, brothers, so the sisters can hear.
It's one of the same lines as was just saying. It's a mercy. It's not like it's not a chore. It's a mercy. The prayer itself.
Uh-huh.
To get
Allah, brother saying it's not a chore, it's a mercy. Very good. Yes, sir?
This is a question I asked you. I just want to kind of a little bit rephrase it. Just
Okay.
kind of tell you the premise of it.
Uh-huh.
This basically the premise is that what is humor for Him in creating us? Like, why did He create us? Like, why did He need to create us? Like, for enjoyment or suffer love?
Right.
Why did He create us?
Uh-huh. So why did Allah then create us?
I don't know, but could you answer the question is, we're created. That's the fact.
Uh-huh.
Where do we go from here? Not.
Oh.
What if we're not created?
Right. Where did you get that from?
I could have gotten it from your CD.
Oh. Every time you quote something exactly like I said, I'm like, hey, because you could have thought of it, right? It's not like I made up every argument. So, excellent, very nice. So the brother is saying, sometimes, what if someone keeps pushing it with the whys? Why should we pray? Allah commands in the Quran. Why? You explain. Why? You explain. Why? You explain. Why? You explain. When you run out of explanations, now what are you going to do? You're going to fire back at him. You're going to say, look, this is what's going on. This is the situation. What are you going to do about it? That's the question. What are you going to do about it? We're here, and we don't know all the whys, But Allah is there and we're here. What are you going to do about it? That's it. You bring it back to the da'wah. But okay, let's push it with the wise until we have to stop. Someone else. Someone new. Ahmed.
He's the creator. He creates.
Okay. Now, by the way, please don't quote this hadith. It's not authentic. A lot of times I'll ask that question and someone will put his hand up. Now? I'm going to say it now. They'll say that كنت كنزا لا أعرف أردت أن أعرف فخلقت الخلق فعرفتهم بي فعبدوني, something like that. Basically it says I was a treasure that was not known. I wanted to be known, so I created people to worship me. And it's just not authentic. Don't use it. But as some scholars say that Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Azza wa Jal is so magnificent and so great that He is deserving of being worshipped, deserving of being appreciated. And that's why we look at the numbers of angels, the phenomenal numbers of angels, and they're constantly worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala non-stop. They don't stop to eat or drink or talk. Non-stop, some of them, since Allah created them, and Allah knows how long that has been. They've been in non-stop worship until the Day of Judgment. And when the Day of Judgment comes, they will say, "Oh Allah, we haven't worshipped you enough." And you know the hadith of the Atat al-Sama, where in the hands, and the Prophet said, the heavens have creaked. Rightfully so that they did creak. So we're talking about the heavens, the 7 heavens. Not just, all of space and everything that's within the first heaven, the worldly heaven. So this is just the size of the first heaven, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh. And their vast size, Prophet said they creaked from the weight on them. It is rightfully so that they did creak, for there is not a handspan, just from here to there, there's an angel standing, or bowing, or prostrating in prayer. So here, if just this room, you fill every handspan, there's a person here. What if we fill this whole city? Every handspan there's someone. What if we fill the whole continent, the whole planet? We're talking the 7 heavens, loaded with angels, constantly standing either bowing or prostrating or standing in prayer. Prophet said they have been doing so ever since Allah created them, and they will continue to do so, quality and quantity, until the trumpet or horn is sound on the Day of Judgment. They will say, "Oh Allah, we have not worshipped you enough." All this, and so far be it from us to pray and then feel arrogant, "I just prayed to Allah." No. That's why the Prophet taught us to say Astaghfirullah. First thing you do after Salah, Astaghfirullah 3 times. Why? You're saying this Salah that I just completed is not befitting the majesty of Allah, the greatness of Allah. These angels have been worshipping this excellent quality. They don't think of anything else. And they will say, "We haven't worshipped you enough, Ya Allah." So Allah Azza wa Jalla is so great and so magnificent that He's deserving of being worshipped, deserving of being recognized. And some people try to explain this like when they say, like when you have, let's say, for the sake of an example, and it's not a comparison to Allah Azza wa Jalla, like when you have some like vintage or let's say classical car that's in superb condition, like very oldie, but it's in excellent condition. And if it's in your garage constantly, it's not appreciated, right? So that's why they have these events when they bring them, just so people can come, the public can come and look at these cars and stare inside, so they can be appreciated. Yeah? Some scholars tell you then, some of the attributes of Allah will be manifested when there is a creation. Like for example, the rahmah of Allah, it will be manifested, meaning applied, when there is a creation to show the rahmah to. The khalq, it will be manifested when there is a creation to create, and so on and so forth, and the wisdoms and all these other things. So you explain it like that. If they keep pushing it with the wise, and you're going to run out of explanation, then you turn it back on them. So, well, you know what? Now we've reached the point where my knowledge is limited, and you can't expect any human being on earth anyways to go that far into knowledge. The question now is, it's the truth, Allah exists and you're here, what are you going to do about it? Just now get back to your da'wah again. Don't always take the position of you ask, I answer, you ask, I answer. Yes, sister?
We are different kind. We are angels. We have the people, and this is why Allah is releasing when we make tawbah to Him. Allah is releasing with this because we are going to Him with our free will. The second thing is that we are created from material, and that is blood and wood and so and spirit. And the materials are fed with water and food and so, but spirit can only be fed by Allah, by worshiping Allah.
جميل جدا. Excellent. Everyone understand? جزاك الله خير. Thank you very much, sister. طيب. Let's see here. I want to talk about the flip side of the argument one more time, or to explain it a little bit further, right? So I said we can always use the flip side of the argument to explain something. We used it with the intervention and how much or what the bad things happen to good people, what the good things happen to bad people. There are also other ways to do it. So for example, let's use it with a Muslim now. So one Muslim will tell you that, and you've heard Muslims make this argument before, they'll tell you that, don't say that Allah is on His throne. Some Muslims will tell you that. Don't make the argument that Allah is settled on His throne. Even though Allah says that in the Quran, they tell you no, He's not on His throne. Look at their argument. When they make the argument, it sounds like it's very respectful. But when you push the argument, what are we doing here?
Fixing the audio a little bit.
But when you fix the argument, let's just. So basically, they're saying, don't say that Allah is on His throne, because that way you're limiting. See how it sounds good? You're limiting Allah to one place. Don't say Allah is on His throne. You with me? So, the argument is, you're limiting Allah. And it makes it sound like you're trying to be very respectful here. And it sounds good in the beginning. But then when you flip the argument around, it's a big, big problem what they're saying. So they're saying, don't say Allah is on His throne. You say, Allah said He's on His throne. Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. Allah is settled on His throne. So now in order to stay with their argument, they have to now twist and change the meanings of the Quran, which is the first problem they get into. So when you say Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, Allah has settled on His throne, they say no, istawa here means istawla, which means like He conquered His throne. Which now brings us into a big problem. You're saying Allah conquered the throne, that means there was someone there on the throne, so He had to conquer something. See how they fall into problems because of their argument. So they're saying, don't say Allah is on His throne, you're limiting Allah to one place. But let me flip this around. You're saying, if He's on His throne, He's physically limited to one place. If I flip it around, it means He's physically everywhere. That's the opposite. And that is a bigger problem. You're trying to you're trying to avoid being disrespectful, you actually fell into it, even more so. When you flip it around, it means He's physically everywhere. And then you ask Him. So here you can use analogy, but we're flipping the argument still. So they're saying that physically everywhere means He's everywhere. In the church, in the restrooms, bars, all these places that you wouldn't be caught dead in. And you're saying He's physically in there. And historically, Muslims have gone astray with this because some of them even wrote poetry saying, وَمَا الْكَلْبُ وَالْخِنْزِيرُ إِلَّا إِلَهُ. The dog and the pig is nothing but our ilah. The dog and the pig is our God. Why? Because the dog takes up space, the pig takes up space, and if God is everywhere physically, that means also inside them. And so is the monk in the monastery, he's our ilah. One of them said, he said, I don't know which one of us is the ilah and which one of us is the mukallaf, the one who is supposed to worship the other. Another one says, Subhani, Subhani. Does he say Subhanallah? Subhani, because Allah is in him, that what he believes, So, when you look at the flip side of the argument, it's a bigger problem. They were trying to respect Allah and say He's not on His throne because that limits Him to one place. But you flip it around, you're saying He's everywhere, in places that you wouldn't want to be caught dead in, and then you're saying He's inside all these things, so you get into a bigger problem. So you flip the argument around. This is the same thing that happened at the time of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, when they said the Quran was created. So they again tried initially to be respectful to Allah Azza wa Jal. They said the Quran is not the speech of Allah. Why? Because speech is renewable. And Allah Azza wa Jal is qadim, like ancient. He's been there for ever. So if you say Allah speaks, that's a renewable quality. And Allah is ancient. Or qadim. I don't know how to translate qadim beyond the ancient. So they're trying to respect Allah, but the problem is when you flip their argument around, that's what Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah did. When you flip the argument around, we have a big problem now. Because you're saying the Quran is not the speech of Allah, it's something created by Allah. And all the creation of Allah and everything besides Allah is imperfect. So now you're saying the Quran is imperfect and it has flaws in it. And everything has an end. You're saying that the Quran has some kind of end. And that's one of the arguments that Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah used when he tells him that, I came to make wudu and I came to pray and I couldn't recite any surah. And then I looked in the room and I found the Quran dead on the floor. So the Khalifa got upset and said, does the Quran die? He said, well, you said it's created and everything that's created has an end. So they were So he used analogy and everything, but when you flip the argument around, you see that it's a big problem. So that's the benefit of using the flip side of the argument. That's why someone, when they say, I don't believe in organized religion. For what it's worth, I love throwing in the word disorganized, just so they can think about the flip side. I don't believe in organized religion, so would you prefer a disorganized one? And I know that's not what they mean, but they say no. But then you get them to think of the flip side. What do you mean organized? And what do you want? You want something that's not organized? You want it to be your way, whatever way you feel like? Yes, sir?
Sorry, can you please reiterate that point? I didn't hear the story of the Imam and the Quran is created.
They're saying that the Quran is not the speech of Allah, it's something created by Allah. And he's arguing with them that everything created by Allah is imperfect. Only Allah is perfect. All His creation is imperfect. And so that means the Quran would be imperfect. 2, everything that's created by Allah has an end. That means you're claiming the Quran will have an end. And he gave them the analogy, the Quran died last night. And they got upset, like, how could you say it died? So, well, it's created and it has an end. So it ended yesterday, So, and then he used many other arguments, many other analogies. He also went into the Quran being the knowledge of Allah. So then he argues with the Khalifas to send him people to debate with him. So he would argue with them, he would tell them, is the knowledge of Allah created? So one of them says yes. Because if he says no, he has to extend that argument to the Quran. So he had to say yes. So Imam Ahmad tells him, kafar, you're a kafir. How could you say the knowledge of Allah is created? So the guard, when he is just a simple guard standing there, he doesn't know, these scholars are debating, he doesn't know really, he can't follow, he doesn't have enough knowledge. When Imam Ahmad tells the man you become a kafir, so the guard gets upset. He tells him, this is the messenger of the Khalifa, how can you call him a kafir? So Imam Ahmad looks at this simple guard, he tells him, he's saying that Allah's knowledge is created. So that means that before Allah created His knowledge, He had no knowledge. And how could He create His knowledge if He didn't have knowledge? So he said the guard just started to give the guy the mean eye, He started to stare at the simple guard, so how could you say that, So he kept reversing these arguments, giving the flip side, Anyone heard the biography of Imam Ahmad? Oh, that's a small number, people. Oh man, that's a small number. The biography of Imam Ahmad is just unbelievably phenomenal. Unbelievably phenomenal. You've heard it by Sheikh Safi Khan? Yeah. Have you heard? Does Hisham al-Awadi do it? No? Okay. I actually have it. It's like 6 hours, but it's not produced anywhere. If somebody wants to take it and edit it and put it online, go ahead. I'll give it to you. It's so phenomenal. It's so phenomenal. It's so detailed. It's heartbreaking. You laugh, you cry, everything. It's just phenomenal. And what a hero, what a man. And you love him because you see that he was afraid at times, but he encouraged himself. And man, look at you start. Because you know what the scholars, the historians and scholars say, that Allah saved this religion with a Siddiq on the day of Al-Ridda, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal on the day of the fitna or the mihna of the creation of the Quran. Why Abu Bakr and Ahmad ibn Hanbal? Why are these the two greatest stances in Islamic history according to scholars? Because there are many times when, like the Mongols, the Tatar invaded the Muslims and they destroyed their libraries and so on. But Islam itself wasn't under any threat of changing. You know, just Muslims were under the threat, but Islam was still okay, the religion. But at the time of Abu Bakr, he stayed steadfast and he preserved Islam from. They said if Abu Bakr didn't stand steadfast, today we would have an Islam without zakah. And if Ahmad ibn Hanbal didn't stand steadfast, today we would have in Islam where the Quran was created and not the speech of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And then the arguments that he used were so phenomenal. And every time he would stump them, they would add more chains and bricks to his chains, and then they would beat him, then they would trample him. They would put something on top and they would all walk over him and they would knock him out. And he's a thin, frail man, but he's just... And see, in the beginning, I know I'm getting into that, it's just beautiful. In the beginning, there were a lot of scholars that were on his side. Then they were threatened with jail, threatened with the swords, only 9 remained. Then they were threatened again, only the 7 of the 9 said, khalas, we'll say what you want us to say. Only 2 remained. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and a young man named Muhammad ibn Nuh. Just this young man, just these 2 people, the Khalif said, send them to me. He says, Wallahi, I'm just going to kill them. So a man came in crying, said, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the Khalifa has got the sword, he pulled it out, and he's going to kill you. Ahmad prayed 2 rak'ah, raised his hands up, and he made dua. He said that when he put his hands down, he heard some screams, the Khalifa had passed away. Anyways, such a phenomenal story. I hope you read it. That was a preview, you know. Coming soon. Anyways, where are we? We were talking about the flip side. So you see, you flip the argument around. Flip the argument. I did it with the beard guy, right? What do Muslims grow their beard? Basically, in a nice way, told him, why do you shave? You know? There was a speech being given by a Muslim speaker at university. A woman came in, all angry and yelling, non-Muslim woman, pointing at the sisters section. Why are they covered like that? So he tells her, well, I mean, you were born unclothed. Why are you covered now? So she said, modesty. He said, well, modesty. More modesty. If you cover yourself for modesty, that means the more you cover yourself, the more modest you are. Using the flip side of the argument, and don't really use this, but it's the flip side of the argument. If someone tells you, like a woman argues, these women are covered and so on, and they're not liberated. The argument is that the more uncovered you are, the more liberated you are. And you could argue, but don't do it. You could argue, well, I see that you're still not fully liberated at the moment. Why don't you liberate yourself some more? So, but it's using the flip side of the argument. If covered is oppressed and uncovered is liberated, well, just be 100% liberated then. Of course, don't use the argument. Sometimes people try to use a fact or a statistic the wrong way, just like we saw. They tell you, some zebras are gay. So, suppose that was a real fact. Would that mean that we should be like that? No. Sometimes they tell you something is natural. Like there was this atheist guy with me at work, and again, don't do this. I'm just showing you the guy was being very aggressive. So I just came to something of equal measure, where he said, and I'll get to you, sister, inshallah. I see you. So he was arguing aggressively. He just really hates Allah, hates Islam, and he thinks he's so upon the truth. So he was saying that he was talking about women flaunting their sexuality and just like that, and I kept telling him that it's not appropriate, and he was saying it's a natural thing. So his argument was that it's natural, and then my counter argument is that not everything that's natural should be done publicly. And people argue a lot of times. They tell you it's natural to be like this, or that's a natural feeling that I have. So yeah, it's natural. Do you do everything natural out publicly and you talk about it publicly? So I told him, So I actually told him, because of the situation and the level of aggression, so I said, it's natural to have a bowel movement, so stand on the table right now, and you pull down your pants and have a bowel movement on the table. and he was stumped immediately, because it's natural, but you don't do it like that. So don't tell me it's natural to have urges and therefore, it's like these people who argue with music. They tell you, it's natural to like music. A child will listen to music, he'll start jumping up and down. It's natural. Yeah? Well, every teenager has urges. That's natural also. It's not like they bought it from a store. It's a natural urge, but does it mean it makes it okay? Some people try to argue if it's natural, that means if it naturally happens to you, that means it's halal. No. So you counter it like that. So sometimes they use the logic but in the wrong place. And there are many other things that are natural but you don't do publicly. Or you don't even talk about them publicly. So we've got like 10 minutes left, right? In 10 minutes left, let's talk about quantifying arguments. Okay, that's another technique to get them to not arguments, but statements. Get them to quantify their statement. So let me... Someone tells you ask someone, you know anything about Islam, you'd like to become Muslim, he tells you, no, because I'm actually very happy being Christian. Someone says that to you. Where do you go from there? Huh? Where do you go from there? Go wherever you want to go. You're the Daya. Ahmed.
What do you mean by
that? Someone else? That's it. That Ahmed just said. Where'd you get that from? Good. Excellent. Yeah, very good. What do you mean by happy? You can't. He actually answered it. He answered it. You have another question? Let me finish this point. And I forgot about you, sister. I'm sorry. I'll come back to you. But look, if someone tells you, I'm satisfied being a Christian, I am happy being Christian, you can't argue this statement at all. You can't argue the fact that he's happy. What are you going to say? Don't be happy. I don't want you to be happy. Or let me make you happier. You can't argue about happy. You know? You can't argue happy. You can't argue satisfied. You know, lawyers use this technique. Any lawyers in the audience? What do you people study in here? Huh? You study law? What's your hand up then? You study law.
No, I told him.
Okay. Okay. I hate it. So, yeah, they use this technique. Well, someone says, yeah, I was a hard worker. So they can't tackle the fact that you're a hard worker. So they get you to quantify what hard means. So let me say, did you work 8 to 9? Or what is it, 9 to 5? Yeah. Say, yeah. And did you work Mondays through Fridays? Yeah. Did you take some Fridays off? Yeah, every other week I took Fridays off. Did you take Saturday and Sunday off? Yes, I took Saturday. So basically, you basically worked Monday through Thursday, and then the next week, Monday through Friday. Yes? Okay. So they quantified it. So when someone tells you, I'm satisfied being Christian, don't tackle the fact that he's satisfied. Get him to define what makes them satisfied. So look at this scenario here. Someone tells you, I'm satisfied being Christian. Now instead of saying, don't be satisfied, I'll make you more satisfied. No, just say, okay, what makes you satisfied? What gives you this feeling of satisfaction because you're Christian? He'll say, well, the reason is that I'm satisfied because Jesus died for my sins. You have something to work with now? Listen to me. Don't just put your hand up. Listen. Do you have something to work with now? Yes. Now you can work with the fact that Jesus died for your sins. I have something to work at and to tackle and to analyze. But I can't tackle the fact that he's happy. I can tell him, what makes you happy being a Christian? And he can say, well, it's the fact that X, X, X. And now you can tackle that point. You can't tackle the fact that he's happy. Get him to explain what makes him happy. Get him to explain what makes him satisfied. Things of that sort. So that's how you quantify an argument. If something doesn't make sense and you don't know what that means, always ask for an explanation, and then get to the root of what makes them feel a certain way. Okay, sister?
Just what your earlier point with the question is modesty. And sometimes when talking to non-Muslims, they ask why is it, they feel like why is the onus on women to be modest, or why do men not necessarily cover up as much? I just sometimes have a hard time.
Okay, you guys get the question? Yes. Now, how do you answer that? No? Yeah, that's true. Men are supposed to be modest, but there are more regulations on the women. Why so? Why more on the women? Created them differently, and he made, for the most part, sometimes these laws don't apply now because people have become strange, but he made for the most part that the beauty of the woman is in her appearance. And the woman will, يعني will be a fitna or a temptation for the man when he sees her. يعني the fitna of the woman is when the man sees her, and that's why Allah made her cover up herself so she does not become like just an object and so on and so forth. But the women are not as effective by as affected by attractive men as men are attracted to. Okay. So the problem with this thing, this was an old argument, but the problem with it now is that, and this was something weird that we discovered, that the scholars of old used to say that one woman can tuftin, be a temptation for 100 men. But 100 men couldn't be a temptation for one woman. That's what they used to say back then. And it was true. But now, you hear this stuff about, it's changed now. Let me just say that. It's changed. I don't know if I want to even get into this stuff. There's a masjid in one area, I won't say where one brother, his wife told him that the sisters in the salah, they're excited about sujood time. I mean, I was shocked when it was very difficult to make sujood in that place from that point onwards. You wouldn't expect that, because we used to argue that women are not attracted to them by looking at the man, and that's why the lowering the gaze is harder upon the man, and it's more obligated on the man than the woman. But of course, the rule is that if the woman is excited by looking at the man, then she has to lower her gaze. If a man is excited by looking at the woman, he lowers his gaze. If a man is excited by looking at anything, he lowers his gaze from it. And if you have a vase in your house that's shaped like this, and that vase excites you, don't look at it. That's really the rule. I'm serious. I understand that brother has serious issues, but that's the rule. Wallahi, the scholars even mentioned that if a man if he sees a young boy, and that makes him, don't look at the young boy. The guy sees a zebra and he doesn't don't look at the zebra. Whatever it is, don't look at it. That's the rule. I'm serious. So, anyways, but the point is that the chance of the woman being a bigger fitna physically is greater. So Allah put her beauty also physically, and that creates a huge fitna. It can, 10 million men now can become maftunin from looking at one woman. That's why the obligation is stronger on the woman to cover, because as the brother said, her butt different physically, and so on and so forth. So just try to go, I know that was kind of scattered the argument, but just try to go somewhere along those lines of explaining why there's more of an obligation to cover. That's why also, you find sometimes like the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ says that if the woman, she does her 5 prayers, she fasts her months, she obeys her husband, she guards her private parts, she can go to paradise from any of the gates that she wants to. Now, you look at, and then sometimes sisters object, why is when you explain that, why did the Prophet mention the woman guarding her privates more so? Because the scholars explained that she is the, what's the word? She's the one that will determine if that happens or not. If the woman says no, then no sin will happen. And so the sister put her, well, the man is also involved. Yes, I understand that, but the go-ahead, the green light or the red light comes from the woman. And so that's why she was given that honor, that if she protects her private part, she could enter paradise from any of the gates that she wants. So we have to look at it from, in Islam, this is really beautiful, they tell you that, the scholars say, that if you consider two things that are different, if you treat them exactly equally, that's injustice. If you have two things that are different, and you treat them exactly equally in every aspect, that's injustice. True or false? Right? And if men are different from women, there has to be different treatment. If I say, okay, this sister, treat her just like she was a man, then I'm being unfair here. Sure, on a human level, this is one soul, this is one soul. It's not like this is 1/3 and this is a full human being. No. On a human level, they're exactly, yes, equal. But when it comes to other things, they're different. So you have to treat them differently. And that's why the Sharia has made different rulings for women when it comes to this, and different rulings for them in Ramadan, in childbirth, because there's a difference between them. Don't accept this argument that, well, the man can do this, the woman can't do that. And this is part of the problem with the radical feminist movement. Not the feminist movement, the radical feminist movement. They argue what the man did, why can men do this and we don't do that? Their goal in life is to be just like the man. So if the man is a boxer, we have to box. If he drives a 18-wheeler, we have to drive 18-wheelers. If he's a firefighter, we have to be firefighters. If whatever the man does, that's what we aspire to become. And this is not the goal that Allah put for women, that they just want to be exactly like the man. Who said that the end result is to be like a man? The opposite. Prophet cursed the women who resemble men, the men who resemble women, because each one is different. So that's why, because of the difference of women, because of how Allah created them, there will be more of an obligation upon them to cover up than upon the men. Right? Anyway, I don't think there's time. I think it's actually 1 o'clock. We have to stop. We reconvene at 1:30. At 2:30? Oh yeah, 2. That's an hour and a half. جزاكم الله خيرا. صلى الله وبارك على محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين. السلام عليكم.